Before we get started, if you guys want to learn how to speak Arabic easily, then download the Kalam app. It's a fun and hassle-free way to learn and practice your Arabic. And if you're thinking about it but you're not sure, then just try it out. You can get a free trial using code Rami. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah and welcome back to the channel. On April 15, 2023, Sudan collapsed into a war between two state-backed forces, two generals, two armies, and millions of people caught in between. Today we'll break down what's really happening in Sudan, who's profiting from it, and who really suffers. Let's first discuss the two armed groups fighting. Firstly, you have the Sudanese Armed Forces, or the SAF, led by General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan. Then you have the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, or the RSF. Now, if RSF sounds familiar to you, that's because they were the ones who carried out the recent atrocities in Sudan. And the RSF is led by Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, also known as Hamidti. The country currently is effectively split in half. The SAF is entrenched in the east around Port Sudan, and the RSF is consolidating control across Darfur in the west, which unfortunately includes Al-Fasher, which fell very recently after an 18-month-long siege, meaning they were fighting over it. They were seizing it and fighting over it for a year and a half straight. And once it finally fell to the RSF, they committed atrocity after atrocity after atrocity on the innocent men, women, and children there. The things that they did were unspeakable. And the worst part is that these animals, these dogs, pretend to be Muslim. And as you'll see in a moment, everything they're doing is for nothing except money and power. Because this isn't a simple power struggle. It's a system built on money, militias, and minerals. Now here's a quick breakdown on how we got to this point. Back in 2019, Sudan had a revolution aimed at pushing the military out of politics and the economy. But there was a coup in 2021, putting that entire transition to a halt. And finally, everything inevitably erupted in 2023, when the country tried but failed to integrate the RSF into the military. So instead of joining together, they just continued to fight, and then the fighting became more and more violent, with both sides struggling to maintain power. The only difference is the Sudanese Armed Forces is a legit power. They are the military, and the RSF is just a paramilitary group. They're just a militia being funded. Funded by who? You'll see. The SAF benefits from a long-standing military-industrial complex, controlling huge portions of the economy, ports, state assets, and formal trading routes along the Red Sea. The RSF, on the other hand, runs a paramilitary industrial machine centered on gold. Gold mined in Darfur, smuggled, and laundered through corporate fronts. This fuels weapon procurements and, of course, their payroll. Now you'll notice the difference between the SAF and the RSF. The SAF, their industrial complex, requires a state. It requires proper functioning of a state, while the RSF does not require a state. Actually, they're the antithesis of the state. What they require is chaos. Yes, they prosper in controlled chaos. That's why they're committing the acts of terror and the numerous crimes upon the people of Sudan. Unfortunately, this is what happens when war is profitable. So now we know that the RSF has created a paramilitary industrial machine based on gold. It's kind of like an engine that runs, but that doesn't work unless you have someone to buy the gold, right? Yes, that is right. And there are external actors that keeps this war engine running. The number one potential actor in question is the UAE. They've been repeatedly accused of enabling the RSF, benefiting from the gold that the RSF steals, and even supplying them with weapons. Now just think about this for a moment. The UAE has over $8 billion worth of gold without a single gold mine within its nation. That's because they get most of their gold from African countries. Sudan being in Africa. Sudan has actually taken a case of genocide to the ICJ against the UAE. And multiple human rights organizations have commented on the potential and the evidence backing the idea that the UAE is actually funding the RSF and benefiting from this terror. Obviously, the SAF has sought counter backers, people to back them and supply them with the aid they need to fight the RSF. But unfortunately, this does not seem to be going too well. Now, to quickly discuss just a little bit of the evidence linking the UAE to what's happening in Sudan, Amnesty International published an article in which they say, on the night of March 9th, 2025, the RSF launched a drone strike near Al-Malha town in Darfur, possibly targeting the Sudanese armed forces. Now, it's really this next part that's interesting. By analyzing digital evidence of the remnants of the bomb used in the strike, Amnesty International identified the fragments as belonging to a Norinco GB-50A guided aerial bomb. Markings on the fragment indicate that the bomb was manufactured in 2024. These bombs can be dropped from various Chinese drones, including Winglong 2 and Feihong 95, both of which are used only by the RSF in Sudan and have been provided by the UAE. Bomb fragments in the photographs show distinctive fins and brackets on the tail section that identify this previously undocumented weapon. The well-preserved markings also match reference images of the GB-50A, including the font, color, and stencil style. So this RSF terror organization is using Chinese-made drones provided to them by the UAE to drop bombs on civilian populations. And these weapons were previously undocumented, meaning people didn't know that the RSF even had access to them. And how would we? Because these weapons are just smuggled in. So as the RSF continues their rampage, their chaos, their terrorism, who suffers the most? Obviously, as always, it's unfortunately the innocent civilians. People have nothing to do with the war, nothing to do with the politics, nothing to do with either of the two groups fighting. The innocent men, women, and children, the innocent Muslims, and the innocent Christians. Halfway through 2025, 10 million people were intentionally displaced, and nearly 25 million face severe hunger. 25 million people are facing severe hunger. Can you imagine that? 25 million people. And in Darfur, the RSF is specifically targeting non-Arab communities. They've committed mass killings, violence, and even burning of camps. These atrocities by the RSF are quite literally the most basic definition of genocide. It is disgusting terrorism and the most un-Islamic thing in the world. And may Allah hold them accountable and punish them for their wrongdoing. And it's important to keep in mind that this is not collateral damage. These people are not just getting caught in the crossfire, it's intentional. And it's strategic. They want to cause terror to clear the land so they can secure the gold mines, take the gold, and continue their paramilitary industrial machine. Not to mention they secure more control over the smuggling routes themselves, so more gold can go out and more weapons can come in, strengthening this terror organization's control and dominance in the land. Now the big question is, what's going to happen? In the short term, I really see two possible things. Either a de facto split, a de facto partition where the RSF controls the west and then the SAF controls the east, or the fighting just keeps going on and most likely the RSF, being funded the way they are, continues to entrench on more and more areas and more civilians get killed. Now there are two main things that will help put an end to this. One is to just cut the gold, cut the cash flow. And since we can't stop gold from going out to Sudan, we have to stop the people from buying the gold, from benefiting from the gold, and from sending money and paying these people to continue doing what they're doing. Because there's no benefit in them causing this terror, getting a bunch of gold if no one's going to buy it from them. But then again, can we really trust country leaders to not take advantage of the situation and buy cheap gold from this terror organization? And the second important thing is to not have a false equivalency. Do not equate the RSF to the SAF. Yes, both have committed crimes. Neither of them are like tremendous and amazing, but the RSF is a paramilitary terrorist group, and the SAF is to some extent a legitimate military for Sudan. So this is not two paramilitary groups fighting, two gangs, two organizations. This is basically the army versus a terrorist organization. And it's fine to want the RSF to be completely dismantled and defeated, and then want the SAF to be removed from politics and economy so the military doesn't control the entire country. And what you can do to help is share this video, or videos like it, or verified reports from the UN or other human rights organizations so people know what's going on. A little note I want to give from myself is it is important to talk about what's happening in the world, especially the atrocities that are going on in places like Sudan, the Congo, in Gaza, Myanmar, and all over the world, unfortunately. But one thing I want you guys to look out for are Zionists that use atrocities that are happening to distract you from Gaza. They want us to be distracted with Sudan so they can continue bombing and starving people in Gaza. And it's unfortunate because all of these issues are important and they should all be spoken about. But Zionists only speak about them to remove your focus from Gaza. And I've seen them even try and demonize pro-Palestinian activists for not talking about Sudan. Look, they don't care about Sudan, to try and make them look evil and demonic, and try and make Zionists, of all people, this morally upright group. It's disgusting and really just reminds me that these people will go as low as they need to. But with that being said, to summarize, what's happening in Sudan is not inevitable. It's not an inevitable reality that we just have to face. It's something that can be stopped. It's something that can be deterred if the right people are held accountable. When war is profitable, people fight, people die. When the cost of war is too high, everyone puts their hands up and goes home. We need to make the cost of war too high. We need to make it so that it's not worth the gold anymore. So it's important to put pressure on the people and the entities that allow this war machine to keep running. And with that being said, I will see you all on the next one. Keep Sudan in your du'as, keep Gaza in your du'as, keep the ummah in your du'as. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.